In the 1990s and 2000s, Johnny Depp was among the biggest A-list Hollywood actors, commanding ever-increasing salaries and power. However, between 2023 and 2024, he's only really starred in 2 projects. So I want to talk about Depp, his rise to stardom, and why his career has seemingly stalled. Before I begin, this isn't a hit piece, but rather a neutral look at Depp, his career, and why he has kind of suddenly fallen off the radar. John Christopher Depp II was born on June 9th, 1963 in Owensboro, Kentucky. His upbringing was pretty typical by all accounts. His mother, Betty Sue Palmer, worked as a waitress, and his father, Christopher Depp, was a civil engineer. Depp spent most of his childhood in Florida, but at the age of 15 left to pursue his passion for music. Like most kids his age, part of this process was just joining garage bands as a way of cutting one's teeth. Depp had a, shall we say, rocky relationship with his mother, Betty Sue Palmer, who the actor described as a mean woman. Though it's nice to know that Depp still took care of her once he was wealthy. Depp's music career really wasn't planning out, and it was around this time that he married a woman named Lori. Johnny would find himself working odd jobs just to make ends meet. However, Depp always seems to be blessed with this luck, and in his younger years he and Lori took a trip to Los Angeles, and this would turn out to be life-changing. There he met a drinking buddy by the name of Nicolas Cage. Cage saw something special in the young Johnny and suggested that he give up music and try acting. The advice led Depp to making his acting debut in the now seminal horror classic A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. There he would play Glenn, the love interest to final girl Nancy. While the role wasn't very big, it did feature one of the most epic deaths of the Elm Street franchise and maybe even the decade. Though luck was again on Depp's side, as he very nearly didn't get the role at all. Originally, it was Brat Packer Charlie Sheen who was cast in the role. But luckily for Depp, Sheen proved to be too expensive for the film, so casting decided to move on. Funny enough, it was Wes Craven's daughter who took one look at Depp's headshots and convinced her dad to cast him, saying he was, quote, beautiful. Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy, talked about Depp, saying that he was at times flustered and overwhelmed by acting and doing things like hitting his mark, yet you would never know this as his on-screen charisma is just off the charts. The film was a monster hit for the new but edgy New Line Cinema, grossing nearly $60 million on a $1.8 million budget. It of course spawned countless sequels, a reboot, a loosely related TV series, and made Freddy Krueger a horror icon. For Depp, though, it was a stepping stone to fame. After Elm Street, Depp did the Hollywood grind of doing bit parts and the odd TV movie. But again, fortune smiled on the actor, getting cast in the TV series 21 Jump Street. Depp played Officer Tom Hansen, who was a part of an undercover police squad that focused on youth-based crime. Depp would appear in over 80 episodes over 4 seasons, but didn't join for the 5th and final one. Later, he would go on to reprise the role, but more on that later. In 1990, Depp would star in John Waters' Cry Baby, and I think this is really notable because it would really cement the young actor as someone willing to take on projects by quirky outsiders. In fact, he kind of felt a personal kinship with these misfits. His idols were Marlon Brando and Hunter S. Thompson, both of whom he got to know and share a strong bond with. While Cry Baby is now a cult film, it didn't do very well at the box office. However, it only further cemented Depp as a bona fide heartthrob. Hollywood, of course, took notice, and this meant they wanted him for big tentpole Hollywood projects. However, Depp wasn't really interested in doing them. Instead, he was busy cultivating this kind of mystique. The same year as Cry Baby came out, Depp also starred in Edward Scissorhands, a modern-day fable directed by Tim Burton. Unlike Crybaby, Scissorhands was a huge hit, bringing in over $80 million on a $20 million budget, but more importantly, it would be one of many times Depp and Burton would collaborate. By this point, Depp already had the kind of freedom most actors would kill for. That is, he would only take the roles that he really felt deeply connected to. This is something that I think Depp and his PR team were incredibly smart about, as most actors have a really hard time going from heartthrob to serious films after they've aged out of that type. While Depp was not technically a teenage heartthrob, as he was only 21 when he starred in Elm Street, he very much had that persona. So it was seamless how the star transformed from being in his 20s in Elm Street to nearly 40 by the time he would land arguably his biggest and most iconic role, Captain Jack Sparrow. Like most projects in Depp's career, it was just right place, right time. But I also feel like there's a theme throughout his success, which is simply willing to take risks. After all, a horror movie from a relatively unknown Wes Craven was a huge risk, starring in a TV series which at the time was considered not that great and very risky, turned out to be 21 Jump Street, which was his huge break. On paper, Edward Scissorhands probably seemed a bit too far out for its lead, but he took it anyway, and it really further cemented his stardom. So when Disney announced a movie based on a theme park ride, understandably this was met with a mixture of eye rolls, laughter, and skepticism. But despite this, and also taking a supporting role to Orlando Bloom, who was 26 at the time, whereas Depp was pushing 40, he really sunk his teeth into Captain Jack Sparrow, and it really paid off. Once again, Depp took a risk, and it was phenomenal. The film, titled Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of Black Pearl, was a massive hit for Disney, bringing in almost $1 billion at the box office. Much like Mike Myers in the titular Austin Powers, the character of Jack Sparrow has been oversaturated, but revisiting it, it's not hard to see why many people found this character to be so charming and just fun to watch. Sure, he's weird as hell, but it always follows a set logic, strange as it may be. This is the brilliance of Depp in the role. It's also worth noting that the actor was extremely protective of the character and even clashed with the studio on how Sparrow should be written. Pirates marks a huge shift in Depp's output, as he more or less phased out this broody indie films that he did in his 20s and 30s. From 2003 to 2004, despite starring in a little indie French film, Happily Ever After, Depp wouldn't return to lower budget indies until taking a supporting role in Kevin Smith's box office bomb Tusk. And this is no shade on Depp, who at the time, as I said, was supporting his mother and extended family, plus had 2 children at this point. With that context in mind, yeah, it's smart to pivot to bigger roles, and despite this shift, he really always did stay true to wanting to explore the weirder characters. From 2010 to 2017 was kind of an up and down year for Depp. For every flop like The Lone Ranger, Depp was also praised for his role in Black Mass and Into the Woods. He would also make several more movies with Burton. Reportedly, it was also around this time that Depp's spending was ballooning. He would also appear in cameos as himself in Jack and Jill and the TV show Life's Too Short, while also reprising famous roles like voicing Edward Scissorhands in an episode of Family Guy, and a fun cameo as Tom Hansen in the 21 Jump Street film. Post Pirates would see Depp and Marilyn Manson collab on some videos, and a balance of big tentpole films and some mid-budget fare. However, unless you're a Puffin fan, which I didn't even know what that was until researching this video, you might notice that post Crimes of Greenwood, Depp hasn't really made much in the way of notable projects. Now, up until this point, the video has been a very brief overview of Depp's career, with mild personal things to help give some texture to his film choices. This video isn't aimed at exploring his personal life. Yet, as it pertains to Depp's film output, I cannot help but address several elephants in the room. Yeah, like that one. Even before the Amber Heard Depp trial, the star was facing some bad press. Rolling Stone writer Stephen Roderick was given unprecedented access to Depp, actually staying with him and getting a real sense of the actor and his recent issues. Published in June 21st, 2018, the article puts a damning spotlight on Depp's drug usage and drinking, which seemed to be nearly non-stop, and that, according to the article, despite earning a staggering $650 million, it's almost entirely gone. It also details lawsuits that have brought to light allegations of a huge spending addiction to the tune of a whopping $2 million a month. The article also addresses a rumor later confirmed by Depp himself that now he has his lines fed through an earpiece, though Depp counters that this is to aid his creative process and not because it's due to laziness or being unprepared. The once in-demand actor also suffered some huge blowback from allegations of abusing his then-wife Amber Heard, which landed the actor in the crosshairs of the Me Too movement in Hollywood. Even longtime collaborator Tim Burton quietly stopped hiring Depp. Famously, J.K. Rowling, a pretty problematic figure herself, came to the actor's defense, saying it was decided that he would still appear in the Fantastic Beasts sequel. And while the Rolling Stones expose and the abuse allegations were bad enough, then the trial happened. So if you've been living under a rock or you just need a quick refresher, the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, formerly titled Johnny C. Depp II v. Amber Laura Heard, was a highly publicized legal battle that unfolded in Fairfax County, Virginia from April 11th to June 1st, 2022. This case involved serious allegations of defamation from both parties, who were once a married couple. However, a lot of personal, and I mean deeply personal things came up about both Heard and Depp in this trial, and I don't know if we've ever really gotten this level of a peek behind the curtain of a huge celebrity's life / struggles. The court had ultimately awarded both parties money, but both parties also suffered a lot in terms of their creative output. Now, at the time, I vividly recall that Depp supporters were pretty quick to come to his defense, while Heard was vilified pretty intensely. It should be noted that I don't have an opinion on this either way. Again, this video is more about why Depp's star is greatly on the decline. As a child of the 90s and someone who got to witness firsthand the kind of mega star power that Johnny Depp had, and hey, I don't care, as cliche as it sounds, he really is a once-in-a-generation actor who could so easily slip into a role to an enormous degree. Yet, it's 2025, and it dawned on me that after the trial, the actor has pretty much went way off the radar. Zooming out, it's interesting to compare this young, fresh-faced Depp morphed into this hard-lived, gangster-like persona the actor has kind of found himself stuck to. Depp, oddly enough, seems to need to take a page from his friend Nicolas Cage, who, after taking pretty much any movie role he could, paid off his debts, and even better, is now a highly sought-after actor. But maybe Depp is fine with remaining comfortable taking on only projects that speak to him, kind of reflecting how he did in his earlier days to a lesser degree. Whether or not Depp isn't getting the offers or is simply not interested is unknown, but I want to end this video on a positive note. I hope he gets a second chance because, as I said, I pretty much grew up with Depp's films, and yeah, I do think that him finding a kind of kinship with oddballs speaks to me on a personal level. But I think that, like everything in Depp's life, it will be right place, right time, and he will find the next movie that brings him into the next chapter of his career and life. So I hope you all enjoyed that video. As always, I linked my information sources in the description below. Please weigh in. Again, I'm not trying to say Depp is an awful person, nor am I saying that he is some saint. I think as all people, we are various shades of black and white. But I want to hear what's some of your favorite Johnny Depp movies. I'll weigh in the comments, and hey, while you're hanging out with me, please consider checking out these other videos, and I will see y'all in the next one.